Hi, I'm Spike Barkin, and I produce music festivals and special events. My lifelong friend here is Walt Burgdorf, who is an internationally renowned dermatologist. He lives in Germany right now. I live in New York, and we're both originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Both grew up in Milwaukee, and both of us attended the University of Wisconsin in Madison. We are basketball fanatics. We've always loved basketball. And when we were sophomores at the University of Wisconsin 50 years ago, we had taken a number of basketball road trips. We'd go down to Chicago, go to the Chicago Stadium, and see their double headers. Later on, we went to Michigan and the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor to see Cassie Russell play off against Dave Stallworth when he was with Wichita State. So we were used to taking these road trips, and then we decided that because we both loved the University of Cincinnati basketball team, and we were very curious about Loyola because we kept reading about them in the newspaper and their sort of run and gun high point performance, we were interested in seeing them. So when both of them ended up in the NCAA finals in 1963, we decided to make that road trip. A friend of ours who lived in Chicago and was going to the University of Wisconsin was able to obtain his parents' car, and we were off and driving on down to Louisville to see the game, to see the tournament. My father had one of his employees, Ed Garrick, was a good friend of Wayne Duke, who at that time was the Big 8 commissioner, and he got us tickets to the tournament. So we drove down, and Walt, do you remember where we stayed?
Yeah, we stayed at the Brown Hotel, where all the teams stayed and all the other coaches, because they always held the coaches conference with the Final Four. And I remember meeting Wayne Duke, and he didn't just throw the tickets at us. He got us rooms in the Brown Hotel and kind of showed us around, and then we drove out to the Freedom Hall and checked it out and went to the Kentucky Derby grounds and got ready for the big games on Friday night. The tournament was of great interest to us because the Loyola was number 3 in the country. They had been up as high as number 2 and had lost a couple games. The Duke was number 2, and Cincinnati was number 1, but did not have their dominant big center, Paul Hogue, who had graduated. But the semifinals were, if anything, a disappointment. Loyola ran over Duke, to everyone's surprise, and Cincinnati killed Oregon State, which had a 7-footer Mel Counts and the Heisman Trophy winner Terry Baker. It was fun in the hotels. I remember, I know you do too, talking to the players, I mean, only briefly, but for example, one of the Loyola players was from Racine, Wisconsin, and I chatted with him a bit. It was for me still an unforgettable moment in my life.
The energy at the hotel and at the arena where the games were was just incredible. There's something about an NC2A final that all that enthusiasm from all the schools and the people that are there to watch those games, it's just fabulous. There's nothing quite like it. And I just remember the excitement and the anticipation actually with Loyola. For some reason, the 2 high school players that had played together, Vic Grouse and Leslie Hunter, I was really curious about that they had both ended up at the University of Loyola Chicago, and was really anxious to see them play. I had never seen Loyola play before that tournament.
I hadn't either, but I had listened to them on the radio a lot. They had a great announcer, Red Rush, and the main sponsor was Ganilla Bread, and Red Rush would come up with statements like, Leslie Hunter stuffed that one in, like you should stuff Ganilla Bread in your shopping basket. And so I knew the players by name very well, but I had never seen them, and I was just as curious as you were.
It was interesting during the game. Well, I was a big Cincinnati fan. I love Cincinnati. I love Tony Yates and Tom Thacker and Ron Bonham. I mean, it was just really, really liked that team. And I was sort of rooting for that team. And then they started to blow out Loyola. And Loyola was having a tough time shooting. I think they shot, I can't remember, but it was really maybe 30%, something like that, maybe even less. And Cincinnati was shooting their typical 50%. And it looked like it was going to be really a disappointing type of game as far as the excitement went. And then Cincinnati started to freeze the ball, which to me was very puzzling because they had been shooting so well. And Loyola started this incredible comeback. And all of a sudden, I had all these conflicted feelings inside me because I started out being a Cincinnati fan, but the way Loyola was playing and the sort of the grittiness and the guttiness and the not giving upness of it, I all of a sudden started becoming a Loyola fan. And it was a very strange transition for me watching that game and sort of having my loyalties just slide over to Loyola. And I just sort of found myself hoping that they would tie and win that game. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I went through the same thing and became a Loyola fan just like you did, and I, followed the team for many years afterwards. I know you went to some of their other NCAA performances. I didn't. The thing I remember real well is that Loyola never substituted. They'd lost their two best subs at midseason for academic problems, and Ireland sometimes did not substitute, and Ed Yucker, the Cincinnati coach, only substituted for a few minutes. He took his center out with foul trouble. So it was really an intense, man against man the whole 45 minutes. Many years later, there was an NCAA game where there was only a few substitutions, and Dick Vitale said that was the most Ironman effort that had ever been seen. And I sent him a note pointing out that Loyola had played 45 minutes with 5 men, and he sent me back an autographed copy of one of his books, So, yeah.
So after the game was over, it was great to sort of see the awards ceremony and that. And we were all, the three of us that had gone down there were really pumped up because it was such an exhilarating game. I remember we were walking out to our car, and I saw Paul Hogue, and I remember saying to him, actually, they could have used you tonight. But I was really happy that Loyola had won.
Okay. The other funny thing, Spike, at the beginning of the final game, Tony Yates was injured and didn't come out. And then Cassius Clay, as you recall, had himself introduced both nights to the crowd, and he was really, that was during his publicity phase. And when Yates finally did come out to play, some of the people around us thought it was Cassius Clay, but once again showing up. And then, didn't we go to a jazz club after the game?
We went to a jazz club, and it was standing room only, it was jammed. And the owner of the club got up and said, "Excuse me, I want to introduce a wonderful person, Cassius Clay. Please come up and say a few words." And that was fabulous. And what was really, really interesting to me was that we were standing towards the back and he was behind us. And as he moved forward, there was none of this sort of cockiness or bravado or anything. He was so polite and gentle. He said, "Excuse me, could I please get by? Excuse me, excuse me." I was so impressed by his demeanor. And I realized at that point that the whole sort of Cassius loudmouth type of thing was all put on and all an act, because he couldn't have been nicer and more gentle as he sort of walked up, and almost modest as he walked up to say hello to the people and got on stage and said hello. And that's a memory that I'll always cherish, actually.
Yeah, me too. I'm getting some tears in my eyes. I have this exactly the same memory. I recall talking to Chucky Wood in the hotel later after the game. He was the sixth man for Loyola who did not play, who was from Racine, Wisconsin. And he was, very happy about winning the tournament, but very sad that he hadn't gotten some playing time. And I remember also Terry Baker, whose team had finished a dismal fourth, but he was the Heisman Trophy winner, sitting there smoking a big cigar, which, I think I guess that was the end of his college athletic career, and he could do it. So those are my two sort of memories of players. And I remember you talking to Hogue. I didn't talk to Paul Hogue. Yeah.
So time passes, and my niece, Jen Aldrich, tells me that she's going to Loyola of Chicago. And I was exhilarated. This was 3 years ago. And I said to her, "Jen, in the year 2013, I'm coming to visit you." And she sort of had a quizzical look on her face and said, "Why 2013? And I said, "Because that's the 50th anniversary of when the Ramblers won the NC2A championship, and it was the greatest NC2A final." and they've got to have some great events going on, and I'm going to find out when they are, and I'm going to join you there. So many thanks to my niece, because I'm going to be seeing her very shortly. And Walt, you have anything else to say?
No?
I think there's just two words that we could say.
Right.
You want to say them?
Sure.
Go Ramblers!